Hello and welcome to the video. This is a follow-up video to one I did a couple of days ago. That was the first look at this thing here. This is the Jumper T18, the new radio from Jumper and kind of the super duper version of the T16 that's been around for about a year and a half now. Now, loads of questions and lots of confusion, so apologies if I've contributed to any of that, but in this video I'm going to go through and answer all the questions that you had on there. Now, I need to say a big thank you to Jumper, because they've also been very good at kind of coming back to me and answering some of the others. So in this one I'm going to answer these 12 questions that constituted pretty much all the stuff I was being asked on the video. So again, thank you to everybody that did that. So I'll put time codes down below if you want to jump to the specific question that you're after, or if you want to settle back, let's go through each of the 12 questions in turn. First question I got was, is that the Pro version? Are those the right gimbals? Yep. I was sent the Pro version, I've confirmed it with Jumper, that's the Pro version. Those are the gimbals that you get. The gimbals look a bit weird, and also because these are the Hall effect gimbals. They haven't got little covers that should go in front of them when they're installed in the model. But those are the Hall effect ones that would come in. These are the kind of super duper ones that you get on the Pro, and that's the big difference between the Pro and the middle version. Next question I got was, are they adjustable using these little middle screws? Well, a little bit. Now, I managed to find a little hex driver that adjusted these, and they go out slightly, which would help you if you're a pincher, but they only come up a millimetre and a half before they seem to be coming to the end of their travel, or they did here. So it's not a huge adjustment, but there is a little one. However, that doesn't seem to be something that's available on the Hall effect ones unless they change the Hall effect gimbals that you're using. There's no place for that screw to be sat by the side of the gimbal itself. Next questions were about feel, and between the two they feel very similar, to be honest. They both are very nice smooth gimbals. There is adjustability on how much tension there is on the springs, and that is probably one of the big differences. You can also adjust the ratchet and the tension on the throttle if that's what you want to do. These by default are kind of mid-tension. These are probably towards the upper end, but if you get into the gimbals, you can use the screws to adjust the tension on the springs to add that, and there is also the spare set of springs in the box if you want to try those and see which one suits you best. But both of the gimbals, for me, there isn't a massive amount of difference in the feel. Next question was, do the thicker pads fit on the back? These pads are relatively easy to remove. I guess we're talking about the Radiomaster one. The Radiomaster pads don't remove in the same way. They're actually connected in some way onto the back of the radio. You don't have to remove those pads like you do on this one in order to get to that single screw that's under there to take the back off. So although they are the same size, you might have to do a little bit of fiddling about to get them to fit, but in theory, if you're willing to play around, then they probably will. I'm sure if there's enough interest, Jumper will bring out their own thicker pads for those of us who are thumbers, if that's what you want. One of the common questions I got was, how big is the battery bay? So let me open this up and actually measure it for you live on camera. So it just about takes two 18-650s. There isn't a lot of wiggle room once you've got it in here. So that way round, it's just under 90 millimeters. That way round, it's just over 41, nearly 42 millimeters, and depth is just over 20 millimeters. The battery bay in the Radiomaster is a little bit bigger than this one, but I covered that in that review because the layout of the back plastics is a little different. Next few are really quick. Support for FrSky ACCST v2.0. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the latest update to the multi-protocol module, and this one is shipping with the latest versions that will allow you to support either ACCST D16 version 1.x or version 2.x and bind to it. So as long as you're not using ACCST version 2.0, which has the encryption, you'll be able to talk to it. That's exactly the same as all modern multi-protocol radios. Nothing particularly unique about that. Next question then is support for Crossfire. Yeah, absolutely. Support for Crossfire is in here. You can actually see that on the screen when I did the first look. Handle out of the way, and you can go into the menu and select CRSF, and there you go, you are tickety-boo. Full speed inverter in this means that you can run CRSF at full speed, and that's not unusual for non-FrSky radios. Everyone else apart from FrSky seems to have figured out that Crossfire is a good thing to support. Next question, does the R9 support R9 Flex? Let me just show you what the menu looks like at the moment. There needs to be a firmware update from what I'm being told about the failsafe on the R9 stuff, and I think that Jumper are coming out with their own R9 receiver. So I think for that one we need a little bit more time just to get all those wrinkles out in order to answer that definitively either way. Next question, can you charge the batteries from the port at the top? No, sadly you can't. You're going to have to take the batteries out and plug them into your charger to charge them. I know lots of people have been asking about that because the Radio Master has the charging circuitry at the bottom with the SD card at the bottom as well, but for this one you're going to have to pop your batteries out and charge them separately. Next question was a very common one, which is on the 5-in-1 versions of the T18. You have this radio antenna which has 915 written on. Lots of people asking about, does it support 868? In the menus, absolutely. As you've just seen, you can change it to whichever setup that you want. You can change the power and stuff in there as well. The antenna itself, Jumper telling me, will support both 868 and 915, and it's got 915 written on it. And thinking about it, if you think about things like the Crossfire antennas, then even though they're designed for both 915 and 868 themselves, there is only one antenna. There's not two versions of things like the Immortal T or the Diamond antennas from TBS for the different versions. So I guess the same thing works here. We need to get more time spent playing with this to see how that's all going to work, again with the R9M system. For the others who asked, the antenna at the top is SMA. So if you have another antenna that you wanted to use, you could replace it with something else. This little rubber ducky is okay, but if I was going to use that an awful lot, I'd probably get one of the FrSky R9M antennas or something else that would fit. Last couple of questions. Is it easy to change from mode 1 to mode 2? I guess it is. I mean, there are 4 screws. You can switch the gimbals around. In OpenTX, it's relatively easy to change it. In the gimbals, I could do a close-up here of these Hall effect ones. The plastics are slightly different on the back, so it's not a case of just taking off one of the springs and moving it across. So you probably have to take your back off and actually swap the gimbals around. But theoretically, that's possible. I would just try and make sure that you get the radio that's set up for the right mode in the first place. It's just going to make your life an awful lot easier. And the last one, or one of the big ones, is about the touchscreen. Is it a touchscreen? The answer is no, it's not. Jumper's view on that is that at the moment touchscreen isn't supported until 3.8 of OpenTX at least, and they didn't want to put a touchscreen in and add that extra cost into the radio when the firmware won't support it and won't support it for quite some time. They have the interface reserved, and they're saying that there will be a HD touchscreen update available when it's supported in the firmware. So at the moment, not touchscreen. Probably one of the reasons why it looks so clear compared with something like the Radio Master that does have it, because the Radio Master appears to have that grid almost over the top. That, I guess, is the touchscreen part of that interface. There were a couple of extra things as well that Jumper got back to me on that I fed back to them from this pre-production unit. The first was about the roller button being a little bit lacking in feedback, I think is what I would say. They've confirmed to me that that has been improved on production models. That's a much more positive thing. I'm really glad they did that, because that's one of the few things on this radio that doesn't feel really nice. There was no CNC fascias, with these, as I've already mentioned. If I get them in, I will show them, but if you need those fascias, otherwise when you install them, there's big gaps around. I was going to install them and have a play with them, but until I get the fascias, there's no point. For the pre-production units, there was a couple of little things that I need to do. There's a firmware update that sorts out a screen issue that you can have now and again, and the big thing was inside, near where all the R9M stuff is at the top, there are a couple of cables that need to be twisted just to make sure that there isn't a lot of interference. So that's going to be sorted on production models, but so if you take your back off yours, if you get one, it's production unit, it will look slightly different to this. I'm going to do that on mine just to make sure that there's no interference from the R9 module at the top. Although for me, I'm not going to do an awful lot with the R9 module. I'm not a fan of R9, I'm a Crossfire pilot. So hopefully that's been interesting and cleared up some of the confusion, particularly about things like the screen and the USB charging and the gimbal stuff, and whether or not this is a pro version as well. Again, thanks to Jumper for coming back to me and helping me answer them these questions. If you have any outstanding ones, then do pop them down below. But I will be making other videos as things change on this and things like the firmware gets updated. So you'll definitely be seeing this radio in more videos in the future. Thank you for watching my video and watching right to the very end. If you want to find out what I'm currently working on, you can follow me on social media by searching for Painless360 in the usual places. If you'd like to become part of the inner circle, then you can become a Patreon. Details are in the description and you get lots of additional benefits. Check out the playlist section on the channel too. I organise all of my videos into playlists, and it's called something like Introduction to or for Beginners. All of the content is aimed so that you can start at the very beginning, and it teaches you that subject, starting with simple principles and moving up to teach you everything you need to know.